The name of Christ is Jesus, right? I don't think so. We are going to study Christ's name, his Hebrew name, what God named the Messiah. That's what we're going to be studying this week, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Sinaitic Life. Let's go ahead and discuss our objective for this week as well as our learning outcome. The objective. The objective of this study is to learn the biblical name of the Messiah. This is to say the name that was given to him at birth. This is a necessary study. People may say, well, what's in a name? A lot. Salvation could possibly be in a name. And we want to talk about this week, brothers and sisters. Let's look at the learning outcome. Upon completion of this study, you will understand the origin of Jesus, the origin of the name Jesus. Where does this name come from? Understand what transliteration means. 3, understand what Yeshua, Yehoshua, and Yeshua means. These are variant names for the Messiah. Or could it be pronunciation? Let's just leave it at names and we'll figure it out in the lesson. 4, understand why the Messiah's name was changed from a Hebrew name to a Greco-Latin anglicized name. Let's look at that again. Understand why the Messiah's name, his Hebrew name, was changed from Hebrew to a Greco-Latin anglicized name. So we go from Hebrew to Greek to Latin to English. Why? We're going to answer that question in this week's study, brothers and sisters. 5, understand how errors are created due to transliterations. 6, understand the origin of the Septuagint. And 7, understand what books were translated into Greek and what Torah means. So, wow, we have a lot to discuss in this lesson, brothers and sisters. We have Septuagint, and we have understand what books were translated into Greek and what Torah means. That's going to be interesting. What does that have to do with this study? We'll find out as we begin to dig deep into this lesson this week, brothers and sisters. May the blessings of Yah be with you. Enjoy this study because it is an extremely important topic. We'll see you next week. Shalom.
Amen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I want to start off with a quick video. This is only about 3 minutes before we jump into the presentation, but just something that kind of gives us a little backdrop into what we're going to be studying today. So we have a hand up. Did someone have a question before we get started? I heard the ping. You all know I'm like Pavlov's dog. Every time I hear that ping, I'm waiting for a question. No? Okay. All right. Bear with me. Let's go ahead and start this video.
One of the most important figures in human history is Jesus Christ, or if you prefer, Jesus of Nazareth. This iconic religious figure, who serves as the focal point for the 2.3 billion followers of the religion that bears his name, has been celebrated in art, music, literature, and prayer in the 2,000 years since he lived and died. However, for most of those 2,000 years, just about everybody who has said his name has pronounced it wrong. This is because Jesus did not speak modern English, nor did he speak any language spoken by all but a handful of people today. His everyday language would have been Aramaic, a cousin of the Hebrew language, and his name was an ancient Aramaic name. What's more, the name he is known by today was not transliterated directly from the ancient language into modern language. Rather, there was an intermediary language that muddled the picture even further. When you are saying Jesus' name in modern English, what you are saying is actually the English approximation of the ancient Greek transliteration of an Aramaic name, since the New Testament was written in Greek. Therefore, it looks and sounds different from what his mother would have named him. Similarly, when you say Jesus in Spanish, or Asu in Japanese, or however his name is rendered into any modern language, you are saying the local version of the ancient Greek version of the Aramaic name. The first century prophet likely went by the name Yeshua, which was short for Yehoshua. This means something akin to God is salvation. And if it looks somewhat familiar, that's because another Bible character had the same name, the Old Testament's Joshua. However, the New Testament was written in ancient Greek, which rendered Jesus' name as Iesos, which wound up in English as Jesus. While a more direct translation of Yeshua in English would be Joshua, the writers of the New Testament deliberately tried to make the Hebrew and Aramaic name work in Greek, leading to the evolution of the name. Basically, those writers wanted to write Yeshua's name using Greek letters, but they didn't have a representation for the SH sound. Instead, they substituted an S, leading to the name Iesos. 16th century translations of the Bible subsequently changed the I at the beginning of the name and replaced it with a J, and eventually his name was spelled Jesus. There's no real explanation for exactly why this replacement happened, other than to say it had largely to do with transliteration, or changing sounds and letters from one alphabet to a separate alphabet, like a square peg in a round hole. The name Jesus today is synonymous with the Christian belief that a man by that name was the Son of God. Jesus is a well-known name, of course, one that requires no introduction to most people living in the world thousands of years after the historical figure died, regardless of their religious beliefs or lack thereof. But in Yeshua's era, his name was actually pretty common. Back in Jesus' day, people with the same name were distinguished by who their father was, so young Yeshua's surname would not be a family name in the same way such names are passed down today. Rather, he would have been known as the son of Joseph, or Yeshua bar Yehoseph. Another way they would have distinguished one Yeshua from another is by adding the place they were from onto the end of their names. This would make him Yeshua Nazariah, which in modern English translates to Jesus of Nazareth.
I'm Brian of Nazareth. What? Yeah, I'm Brian of Nazareth. Take him down. I'm Brian of Nazareth. I'm Brian. I'm Brian.
The word Christ was never part of Yeshua's name either. It means anointed one and is a title conferred upon him later. Amidst the backdrop of all this is the question of whether calling Jesus something that sounds only vaguely like his actual name is disrespectful or even sinful. Indeed.
So I'll stop that there. So let's dig a little bit deeper into what he just said. Is calling the Messiah by a different name something that we should be mindful of? So give me just 1 second as I bring up my screen. All right. Okay. So let's just start off with thinking through some of what we just heard. So I want you to just take a minute to really absorb the question, like, what happens when a name isn't just what we call someone? What happens when this name actually really carries more of a theological message? So that was something that the video didn't really touch upon, was the theological message, right? We talked about how did we get from the pre-exilic to the post-exilic? How did we get from Yehoshua to Yeshua to Iesu to Jesus, right? So we're going to look a little bit deeper than that. We're really going to look at what was the Messiah's name, what was his original name, but also what we want to talk about this evening is the idea, the fact that the Messiah's name proclaimed his mission. So when we are saying his name, we are looking at the mission that went along with why he was sent and what he was sent to do. So again, tonight what we're going to do is we are going to look at the name of Christ. Just double checking that you all are seeing my screen. Good deal. All right, so our intent this evening is to learn the biblical name of the Messiah. That is the name that he was given at birth. We know the name Jesus. This is the most recognizable name in the world. It's historical attestation to who this man is. In Hebrew culture, his name, his actual name, again, the name given to him at birth, carries a profound theological meaning. It's not just an identifier. So what we seek to do is ask and answer the question, is Jesus the Messiah's name? So let's discuss what transliteration means, what Yeshua, Yehoshua, Yehoshua, and Yahshua means, why the Messiah's name was changed from a Hebrew name to a Greco-Latin anglicized name, what errors may have come through because of these transliterations. We're going to also dig into the Septuagint, and we'll also talk a little bit more about the books that were actually translated into Greek and the Torah and what that means. So something to keep in mind, in the Hebraic culture, names were meant to be more than just identifiers because, again, they carried profound theological meaning and purpose. The Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, it contains a record. It has numerous examples of names that were declared with divine attributes. Let me say that again. Names that were declared with divine attributes, with promises. Okay, so there's meaning behind our names. A tradition that was important to Elohim. So that's something to think about. Our names also, I'll go a step further. Our names give us identifiers. I chose my Hebrew name when I first got into the culture, mainly because I had come out of Christianity. I'd come out of being Catholic. And I remember whenever I would ask questions in Catholicism, I was always told, well, you take the good with the bad. We don't know the reason for this. There were never any real good, strong answers. And I was always left feeling like I didn't know, I didn't understand, I didn't know where to turn to. So when I first transitioned into the culture after I got my mikveh, my baptism, I chose the name Morieyah, which means Yah is my teacher. The other side of that is teacher of Yah. Right? So I would come to tell you that in all of the years that I have carried my theophoric name, the name that glorifies Elohim, that especially now he has given me an opportunity to be able to serve him by being able to teach others. So just something I want you all to think about when it comes to our names, because our names come with promises. Our names come with blessings. Our names are they will give you certain personality traits. So again, something just want you to think about, why are names important? So, okay, let's talk about the Messiah's family. So the Messiah grew up in a Hebrew speaking family. I'll say that again. He grew up in a Hebrew speaking family. However, when we get to the book of Matthew, who was a Hebrew Israelite writing to a Hebraic audience, we see that in the book of Matthew, we get anglicized names. What are anglicized names? These are names that have been modified. They're words, names, and phrases that have been modified to make them easier to spell, pronounce, and understand in English. These names obscure a crucial pattern, though. So let's take a look at this family tree. We have Elizabeth, the cousin of Mary. Her name is Elisheva. My God is an oath, or my God is abundance. I would say that God dealt with her abundantly. Okay. Her son, John the Baptist, his Hebrew name, Yah is gracious, Yehochanan. Yah is gracious. Okay. We have Miriam, the mother of Yeshua. Her sons outside of Yeshua were Yehoseph, Yah adds, Yehudah, Yah be praised, Yaakov, to supplant, Shimeon, to be heard. So what we see here is that these names, most of his family members had theophoric names, right? These are names that incorporate the divine name. They are serving as a living testimony. Yah is gracious. Yah adds. Yah be praised. They are a living testimony about Elohim's character and actions. These names contain Yah, Yeho, or even El. These are how we know that these names are theophoric. And this was a deliberate pattern. This was a deliberate tradition within Hebraic families, this to honor the Most High. So if we know that Miriam named her sons Yahoseph, Yehudah, Yahob, Shimeon, would she have named him her first son? Would she have named him Jesus? Would his name not also have been a Hebraic name? Again, we're talking about a Hebraic speaking family in a Hebraic culture to have an anglicized name. So again, there's a pattern. We see Yah, his name, appearing in this family pattern. So when we look at the book of Matthew, however, again, Matthew was a Hebrew Israelite speaking to a Hebraic audience, but when we get his testament, we see, is this not the carpenter's son? Is not his mother Mary? Was that her name? Are not his brother James? That would be Jacob. Also, Jacob is another option for that. Joseph, Yahoseph, Yahoseph. Simon, Shimeon. Judas, Yehudah. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we get from Hebraic speaking people into anglicized names? Let's dig a little deeper into that. Make sense so far? Everybody tracking? We are on the path? Thumbs up? Okay. So we're going to dig a little bit into transliteration of the Messiah's name. Can I get a volunteer to help me read this slide?
I'll read it.
Okay, Miss Andrea.
One second, let me just make it a little bigger. It says the transliteration of the Messiah's name. Transliteration. The process of transferring a name from one language to another to make it easier to pronounce. Letters are transferred between languages with substitutes when no equivalent exists, from Hebrew to Greek, then to Latin, then to English. Transformations lost their original. Transformations. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're
What's the original meaning?
good.
Transliteration occurs by transferring letters from one language to those of another language. And when the letters do not have an equivalent letter, for example, Hebrew has sounds like sh and initial y that Greek couldn't represent accurately, forcing substitutions that distorted the original name. This process was used by the Hebrews who lived in Egypt and became acculturated with the, I'm sorry, I gotta move the screen back and forth, from the Greek culture, but lost their ability to read Hebrew.
Right.
The Septuagint, this Greek translation of Hebrew scriptures, 3rd to 2nd century BCE, was created because many Hebrews in Egypt had become acculturated with Greek culture and lost their ability to read Hebrew. As a result, the Hebrew Bible was translated into the Greek translation of the Bible called the Septuagint. And the Messiah's name was altered into Iosus.
Yes.
The Messiah's name was altered from the Hebrew Yehoshua to Greek Iosus
Yes.
to Latin English Jesus.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate your help. So here's what I want us to think about. How many people when they were a kid played that game telephone? Show of hands. Right. Exactly. So you remember when you played that game telephone, it would start off, and we're going to start off with Yehoshua, right? Then you get to the next person and you've got Yeshua. Then you get to the next person and it's like, well, I'm not really sure what they said. It sounded like this, but this is essentially what has happened when we're transitioning something from one to the next to the next to the next. In this case, it was intentional, I have to say, because we're going from Hebrew, right? So we have Hebrew scribes. This is who wrote the Septuagint. We have Hebrew scribes who are saying the Hebraic people who are living in Alexandria, who are living in Egypt, have become so acculturated that they no longer speak their native language. They no longer are able to read Hebrew. But now we have our Bible, the Hebrew scriptures, we have this Torah that we need for our people to be able to understand. So these scribes who read and spoke Greek, who read and spoke Hebrew, said, we're going to translate our Bible, the Hebrew Bible, into Greek so that the acculturated people, the Hellenized people, can understand. Now, the issue with that is now when we start off with Hebrew, there are going to be certain letters like the sheen, the sh sound, the sh sound that doesn't exist in Greek. The y, the yod, doesn't exist in Greek. So now we're going to have to make concessions, right? So now we're going to change things. We're forcing substitutions. And sadly, when we force these substitutions, things get distorted and the original names, as they start to deteriorate from the original message, are no longer going to transmit that same message that we started off with at the beginning of this telephone line. Okay, so we start off with Yehoshua, which means Yah saves. This is a divine name. It has salvation. It has salvific meaning. It has the full theophoric meaning because we have Yah present in this name. We then transfer to Iesu because, again, we've got to drop a couple of letters. We don't have a Y, so we're going to put in this EI as a substitute for the Y. We don't have an SH, so we're going to substitute an S. Oh, and then by the way, because this is Greek and we now have to follow the pattern of Greek because Yahoshua is a man, we now have to add this S. So this S never even existed from Hebrew to Greek, but we now have to add it because this is part of the rule in writing a name, a masculine name in the Greek language. So now we get to the Romans who now want to translate their own Bible, and they're saying, okay, we're not going to go back to the original. We're not going to go back to Yehoshua. And something I forgot to mention. These are post-exilic transitions. So they didn't even start with translation from Yehoshua. They started with Yeshua, which was already elided. So now we're going to translate or transliterate Iesu into the now Latin and English. So we really are now going to deteriorate the message even further, right? So we're going to start off as Yehoshua, and by the time we get to the end of this party line, we get to the end of the telephone line, we now end up with Jesus, which was not even an original message that was being sent here. So again, Jesus is the Latinized transliteration of the Greek Iesu for the Hebrew name Yeshua, which was already a shortened name of Yehoshua. Making sense so far? Everybody tracking? All right, I'm seeing my thumbs. Sister Andrea, you have a question?
No, I was trying to wave and say I'm
Okay.
following. I'm sorry.
No. You're good. I'm loving your participation. You keep on. All right.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the Septuagint. I just wanted to add kind of a breakdown just to make sure that everybody is familiar with all of the terms that we're using here this evening. So the Septuagint, you'll also hear it referred to as the LXX, which is the Greek 70. That's fifth. That's oh, we got a hand up. Oh, Sister Sheila, you've got a question?
Yes, I'm kind of confused because I'm not understanding what the different pronunciations of the same word Jesus. Why do we have to go through all that just to get to the same name of Jesus?
Right. So that's what we're walking through. So what
I mean, I guess my question is, why is that so important in
oh,
religious world?
you're ready for the big reveal. So
Yeah.
can I ask?
Oh, okay, go ahead, go ahead. I'm sorry, I might be getting a little ahead.
Yeah, no,
I'm
you
just, I,
know.
I just can't. I'm just trying to figure out why is that so important in the religion
Oh,
realm.
hold that question. Hold that question
Okay,
because
okay,
there is going to be a big reveal. So I don't want to give away the spoilers just yet. But
okay,
we're going to
okay.
walk you
I'm
through
sorry.
that. No, 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 no. Don't apologize. It is a beautiful question. We are definitely going to answer it. But again, I want to make sure we're building that momentum so I can explain from A to B to C how we got there. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Perfect. Love the question. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So starting off where we are here again, and Sister Sheila, I'm going to walk you through all of this. So we've got the Septuagint. Again, this is the translation from the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. So we have Hebrew Israelites who do not speak. They do not speak Hebrew. So now we've got to give them a book that they can read, our Hebrew scriptures. We've got to give it to them in Greek. We have the 70 scribes. They initially translated the Torah for us, again, primarily for the use of Greek speaking Jews. What they transcribed was the Tanakh, which was the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. The Tanakh is just an acronym for Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible. The Nevi'im, Hebrew word for prophets. Ketuvim, Hebrew word for writings. So this is what the Torah is, or the Tanakh is, again, beginning with the first 5 books. We have the original Hebrew names in their full theophoric meanings inside of the Tanakh. That is why this was the Hebrew book. This was how they understood the words, the laws of Yah that he gave to them, giving us his message through his prophets. Making sense so far? Okay. When Hebrew scriptures were translated into the Greek Septuagint, Hebrew names containing divine elements were transliterated rather than translated. What does that mean? So we're not doing a thought for thought. We're doing this sounds close to what we're trying to do. So what we start doing, and this is starting to answer your question, Sister Sheila, is we're starting to change the meaning of the words. So with this is where we're beginning a process of changing and removing the Most High from the Messiah's name and realistically from his mission. So this transformation, this linguistic transformation started with the Septuagint and then continued into subsequent translations. So before we kind of get all the way to Jesus, let's start with understanding the initial name of the Messiah. So we have Yehoshua and Yahoshua. These are regional dialects that played a crucial role in how in how Yeshua's name, Yehoshua's name, was originally pronounced. Okay, I need someone to help me out. I need a Southerner. Who is born? Oh, yes, Miss Margaret. Thank you. Come off mute for me.
Okay.
I need you to just read. Oop, oop. hold on, go back. I'm sorry. Right here, I need you to pronounce this for me.
Appalachian Mountains.
Miss Margaret, you know who I need to talk to.
Okay.
All right, let me see if I can find someone else who is from the South. Let me see.
I'm not Southern. I get that all the time.
I know. Okay, let me see. Who might be from the South who can help us out? Anybody else can raise their hand to help me on this one. Sister Tara, where are you from? Oh, she's not coming off mute for me. Okay, Miss Amaria, help me out here. Minister Amaria.
I was trying
Shalom, sis.
my mic. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, hold on a second, Sister Maria. Sister Tara,
That's
I can
okay.
hear you. Can you?
I couldn't get to my mic. I was listening but feeding my baby at the same time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
Pronounce this one thing for me right here.
Oh no, the what? The Appalachian? I'm the same way. My family's from Mississippi, but I'm a northerner.
Oh, all right.
I live in North Carolina.
No, you're good. I'm gonna try one more time. Sister Maria, help me out here.
Appalachian?
Thank you. So now we've had two people say it. Do you all hear the difference? We have an Appalachian and we have Appalachian. Now I'm from the north, I say Appalachian. But as soon as I moved down here, people are telling me it's Appalachian State, it's the Appalachian Mountains. And I'm like, oh, okay, not a problem. So this is what we are referring to when we're talking about regional dialects. When you hear a northerner say something in one way and a southerner say the same thing in another way, it's still the same thing. We're still talking about the Appalachian Mountains, but we have different dialects depending on whether you're from the north and the south. We have an example of this where we see in the book of Matthew 26:73, where, and we all know the story, this is when Peter is denying Yeshua. He is told that he will, when Yeshua tells him, you will deny me 3 times before the cock crows. And, people are asking him and he's saying, no, it was not me. I was not with him. And one of the bystanders points him out and she says, no, certainly you are one of them, for your accent betray you. So Peter's Galilean accent was recognizable to those in Jerusalem. The fact that he spoke differently, he said Appalachian, he said Appalachian versus saying Appalachian. This is how we knew where he was from. So these regional differences are what affected how the Messiah's name was initially pronounced. So we have Yehoshua in the north versus Yahoshua in the south. Okay, we still see the yod and the hey, Yah, yod and the hey. So they both have that same theophoric beginning on them. They have the shu'ah, which means save. So when we take away the nakud here, yod, hey, wav, shin, ayin, we still have Yah and then shu'ah. And this is how we know that we're getting Yah saves when we're looking at the base Hebrew. Now I'll give you all another option. Sister Shiana?
Just wanted, so some people pronounce it Yeshua instead of
Yes. And we're you guys have the best questions. Yes. And we're gonna dig a little bit into that later in the lesson. But
Okay.
It's all, they all mean Yah saves. And yes, we will explain that as well. But perfect, beautiful. Thank you for that. So another example that I'm going to give you all real quick just before we move on is, again, both of these mean Yah saves. Again, we have the yod, the hey, which for Yah, and the shu'ah at the end, which it means save. So for those of us who are from the north, we say New Orleans or New Orleans. And here in the south, or especially if you go to New Orleans, they're going to tell you it's pronounced New Orleans. So again, That accent is what betrays us. Making sense so far? All right, good deal. All right, so now we're going to get into this transformation of the Messiah's name. So the Messiah's name has moved through different language systems. That's what transliteration means. There were attempts to preserve the sound. Let me repeat. Transliteration were attempts to preserve the sound of how the name was said. We're talking about meaning when we're looking at the spelling and how Southerners and Northerners said it. But once we get into transliteration, we're no longer looking at meaning. We're looking at how does it sound? Am I saying it in a way that sounds the same? And the result for this, Sister Sheila, is that we now start to lose the meaning of the word. Okay? So we talked a little bit about that yod. We talked about the sheen. We talked about the ayin, right? They're starting this transliteration process with Yeshua and not Yehoshua or Yahoshua. So we're already starting from an elided place. But however, Yeshua, the post-exilic, we focus on pre-exilic, being closer to Sinai. But post-exilic, this is the time after the Babylonian captivity, they're already using a shortened name. It still means salvation or he saved, but it doesn't mean Yah saved. So this is the starting point when we're changing from one language to the next. We then get into Greek. So again, we don't have that Y. So we're going to change that out for the iota eta, the E sound. Yeah, there's no yeah, so we got an E. Yeah. Kind of sounds like a Y, but not really. We don't have a sh sound, so we just replace that S. There's no oo sound for the shu, which is where we have the wav sharuk here. That gives us a oo sound. So because they don't necessarily have a oo, we're going to give you the Omicron upsilon to kind of fit it together. There's no A, so we're just going to drop the A altogether. And then we're going to tag on this S. So now we go from Yeshua to Jesus. All right. So we've got a similar sounding name, but we don't have a similar meaning name. We're losing the divine elements. We can no longer recognize where this name started, the purpose of this name. So again, Sister Sheila, this is where we're starting to kind of slowly reveal this is the reasoning behind why this becomes important, because we're losing the meaning of why this name was given. So again, then we get from this Greek transliteration, we're going to Latin and English. So we don't have the EI. We're going to just throw that J in there, the JE, because we're going to keep the E. The S is the same as the sigma, but again, that S was supposed to be the SH, the sh sound. We have the oo sound. We're just going to throw in a U for that. So now we get JESUS. We no longer have the original meaning of salvation. The name now is just an identifier. It has no meaning from its original meaning of salvation. We're going to get into what Jesus actually means, but we know it no longer means salvation. And more importantly, it no longer means Yah salvation and Yah saves. So again, these transformations prioritized the sound. They preserved sound, and they did it at the expense of the theological meaning of the name. What began as a declaration of salvation became nearly a personal identifier that's completely disconnected from its Hebrew origins. We tracking so far? Any questions thus far? All right. I love to see the thumbs, ladies and gents. I love them. Thank you. So let's break down this transliteration. And whenever you all see this, this is, the Yod, Hey, Wav, Hey. This is the English equivalent for that. It's essentially how we would give you the English letters for the Yod, the Hey, and the Yod, Hey, Wav, and Hey. So YHWH, that's all that is. The transformation of the Messiah's name wasn't just about changing letters. Again, it fundamentally altered what the name communicated. Remember, we started this with saying that every time we said the name Yehoshua and Yahoshua or Yahshua, we are speaking the mission that he was given. Yah saves. But through these different transliterations into Greek and then into Latin, the meaning was lost. So we changed not just the name, we changed what it meant. So the sound of the name was preserved, sort of, kind of, not really. But most importantly, what happened is that we changed what the name meant. So again, we went through this. We see the YE changing into IE into Greek, retaining IE in Latin, and then changing to JE in English. The SH going to S in Greek, and then continuing to be S all the way through down into English. The UA, the A, the UA becomes an oos sound, US, and by the time we get into English, we have this SUS at the end, and we're going to touch on that in just a few minutes. So again, we weren't merely making phonetical adaptations. We have altered the name that is being communicated. I can't say it enough. What began as a name that meant salvation became merely a personal identifier disconnected from its Hebrew origin. We have a name that means Yah saves or salvation, to meaning something completely different by the time we get to the English version of the name. And why is this important? Acts 4:12. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. So we have to consider the name the apostles were actually referencing. Again, the Hebrew Yehoshua, Yahoshua, not its later Greek and Latin forms. This name has salvific meaning, salvific understanding. There is a mission behind this name. So where did the name originate? Why is it important? How is it given? The biblical record emphasizes that the divine origin, let me repeat, the divine origin of certain names. We have divine origin of certain names. So we see that before John the Baptist was born, the angel Gabriel specifically instructed Zechariah to name his son Yehochanan. Remember, that name means Yah is gracious. And as an aside, when Zechariah doubted, he doubted the words coming from Yah. He was struck mute until the name was confirmed. So after the birth, when he had to go make record of the birth of his son, he comes up with this name, Yehochanan, not part of his current family record. So they had to say, yes, no, this is what we're going to name him. Why? Because it was divinely given. A malach, an angel, was sent to give this name. So we see him being struck dumb because he doubted. 6 months later, that same malach, that same angel, appeared to Miriam with similar instructions. She's told that now she's going to name her son Yehoshua. Again, divine instruction on what you are to name your son. So are we going to call him whatever we want to call him? Or are we going to go by what was given by divine instruction? What we see here is that there is a deliberate parallel. There is a pattern. Yehochanan wasn't a casual suggestion. It was a divine decree. We can see that in Luke 1:13. It has specific purpose. Yah is gracious, Yah saves. Yah is gracious, Yah saves. Yehochanan's name is significant. The Messiah's name is equally significant and divinely determined. So much so that an angel, a malach, had to announce both names because they contained theophoric elements. Again, there's a pattern here which reveals that Yah considers these theophoric names so important, these names that contains his own name, significant enough that he is going to send a messenger to ensure that these names were properly given. Let's pause and let that marinate. Yah thought it was significant enough that he sent a malach to make sure that these names were given by his divine decree, by his divine instructions. Why is this important? There's actually a hidden message in theophoric names. Sister Tseruyah, can you help us out for just a second?
Here, what if Elohim, what if God encoded salvation formula in names? When Yehoshadek, Yah is righteous, precedes Yehoshua, Yah saves, and Yehochanan, Yah is gracious, prepares for Yehoshua, are these divine signatures revealing the true order of redemption? Let's think about that for a moment.
So there's a hidden message here. There's a divine signature revealing there's an order of redemption. So Hebrew names often contain theological messages. Let's think about that. They contain messages. Remember, we talked about that at the beginning. And they form patterns throughout Scripture. This is how forward-thinking our Elohim is. So we're giving you the example of Yehoshua ben Yehoshadek. He is in the book of Zechariah and Haggai. His name means Yah saves. His father's name meant Yah is righteous. So we see, again, a theological statement here. Righteousness precedes salvation. Similarly, with the sequence of Yehochanan, Yah is gracious, preceding Yehoshua, Yah saves, we again see another pattern. Grace comes before salvation. So in the Old Testament, the initial pattern, Yehoshadek, Yah is righteous, Yehoshua, Yah saves. Every time we say Yehoshua, we always know that means Yah saves. Remember last week we talked about typology. We talked about the type, something that foreshadows something to come. So with the Old Testament, we have a type. With the New Testament, we have the fulfillment, the antitype. So with Yehochanan, Yah is gracious. Yehoshua, Yah saves. So again, we have these biblical patterns, the messages that Elohim is giving us. He's telling you, this is how my process works. When I give you servants, this is how this is going to be broken down for you. Righteousness has to precede salvation. Grace in the New Testament is going to also precede salvation. So these embedded messages are lost when names are transliterated without preserving their name. So again, Sister Sheila, I'm building for you. I'm building for you. Okay? This is why this now is becoming important, because Yah has given us a message. There's something that needs to happen here, right? In the New Testament, we're looking at grace, and then we are looking at salvation. But if we just erase this message, right, because we're transitioning a name from one language to another, we're now losing that message. We're now losing that understanding. We're losing that connection to what Elohim is trying to teach us, what we are trying to learn. So when we restore the original name, we uncover all of the layers of theological significance that restores the biblical theme, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to deprogram ourselves. We have spent so many years, decades, learning things from a Western Eurasian perspective, a perspective that has erased the original meaning and understanding of the messages that Elohim has given to us. We have been programmed with a new message that's telling us, hey, do whatever you want, say whatever you want, it'll be fine. But that is not the message that Elohim has actually given us. And so we're trying to deprogram and reconnect and learn and understand what it is the Father actually has in store for us. Making sense so far? Uh-oh, we got a little something going on here. Sorry about that. So we've got a pattern that emerges when we compare how humans referred to people with theophoric names versus how Elohim himself referred to them. So we see in the post-exilic books like Ezra and Nehemiah and Chronicles that the high priest is often called by a shortened name. So remember, we talked about Yeshua being a shortened name, as opposed to his full theophoric name, which is Yehoshua. Why is this important? Because when Yah speaks through his prophets, which we see in the book of Zechariah, which we see in the book of Haggai, when Yah speaks, he consistently uses the full form, the full theophoric name, Yehoshua ben Yehosadak, not Yeshua that we see in the man-made books or in the books where Elohim isn't directly speaking. When Elohim speaks, think about this. When Elohim speaks, he's using the full theophoric name, not the shortened form, again, that we see in the human writings. He consistently uses the full theophoric name, which indicates to us that Yah places special importance on maintaining the theophoric element. Again, he wants his own name, the name Yah, to remain visible and part of the salvation process. We're reminded in the book of Isaiah that he will give his power to no other. I think what happened is the text got pushed up here. Sorry about that. My power we will give to no other. So not shortened formed, right? We're not using the elided Yeshua. We want the Yehoshua, not Yosadek, Yehoshedek. Again, the human form is shortened. It loses power. Yah's name has power. All right, now, Sister Sheila, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the problem with the name Jesus. Jesus. The Latinized name Jesus. It does create a few problems beyond just mere linguistic changes. First, it completely loses the theophoric element. The divine name, what we've been talking about, the theophoric name, Yah's name, is no longer present in Jesus. So we started with our Hebraic, with the original Hebrew, Yehoshua. Again, full theophoric meaning, contains the divine name Yah. It explicitly proclaims Yah saves, and it preserves the Hebrew culture and identity. What else is wrong with the name Jesus? It obscures the Messiah's identity as a Jewish Hebrew individual. Nowadays, where everybody is so concerned with identity, what we identify as, the Messiah identified as a Hebrew, and we're taking that away from him. It also loses the connection with the Hebraic prophecy. That is very important. So now we're transitioning Iesu into Greek. Again, we've lost that divine element. We've kept the sound, but we've lost the divine element. We've added letters. We've lost the divine element. Kind of sounds like Yeshua, Yehoshua, Yeshua, but we've lost the divine element. Ooh, all right, Sister Sheila, you listening? Let's start. It's time for the reveal. The Latin suffix sus, so that sus that we get in Jesus, while this was unintended, the Latin word sus actually means pig. So this creates an egregious coincidence that's completely foreign to the Hebrew naming traditions and would have been culturally unthinkable for a Hebrew name, especially that of the Messiah. So J-E, he, sus, pig. So we went from Yah saves to he pig. So we completely lost the theophoric and theological meaning. This name is now just an identifier. Like you say, Jesus, we know who y'all are talking about. But there is no longer a divine reference. And then to make it worse, you gonna throw a pig on them. And it's something else to think about. Yeshua was the lamb, the sacrifice, right? For those of us who know and understand the Hebraic culture, you're not sacrificing a pig on the altar. Again, this was unintended. But it is now taken on such a completely different meaning from where it started that we end up with this little guy over here, this hog, which is what sus actually means. He sus, he pig. So again, the name no longer communicates its original theological declaration, which is Yah is salvation. Elohim is directly involved in the naming process. He sent his malach, says you are going to name him Yah salvation, right? We know that in the process of how this is going to go, he is the sacrificial lamb. He is something that is a clean vessel. To now his name means something that's unclean, something that could not have been sacrificed. Not saying that that was the intent, but this is what we get. Sister Tseruyah, can you help us?
Okay. Sure. If a name is meant to declare something about its bearer, what message are we sending when we use a name that has lost its original proclamation that Yah saves? And Jesus does not mean Yah saves.
No.
Any additional thought on that one?
Sister Sheila.
I believe Sister Sheila left, unless she has returned, but I saw that she left.
Oh,
Let's see if
darn.
she's still here.
I'm in here. I'm preaching to Sister Sheila. Sister Sheila ain't even here. Okay. But if
I don't think
anyone had
Yeah.
questions about the problem with the name, has it started to become a little bit more clear now why this name is problematic? Again, just from the journey from the original meaning to the fact that we have now changed something that is a mission given divinely, a divine decree, to something that I'll just simply say is a moniker. Anyone have any questions about that thus far? Is it making sense? Ooh, Miss Margaret gone.
I just want to say that changing the from YAH YEH is still pronounced almost the same, though, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So remember,
Okay.
we did that little exercise, Appalachian, right?
Mhm.
The YAH, the YEH, we're still, when we look at the original Hebrew, we're still starting with the Yod Hey. It's just how it was pronounced.
Right.
Right. Perfect.
Trick
Beautiful
of the
question.
enemy. Trick of the enemy.
Yes. So we're not changing the meaning, right? Again, we're just looking at dialect, we're looking at accent, how one person would say it versus another, but we're still spelling it the same. We're still maintaining the theophoric element. Great question.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right. Woo. So what do we have here in the book of Acts, chapter 26, 14 to 15? Verse 14 says, when he had all when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew language, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? So what do we see? In Acts chapter 26, verses 14 to 15, Luke is providing us with a crucial detail about the Messiah's identification, how he identified, what he identified as. Okay? When he's appearing to Paul on the road to Damascus, Luke specifically notes that the Messiah spoke in the Hebrew language. Shaul, Shaul, lama teradegeni. This is crucial evidence, primary source evidence that's detailing a significant marker, a self-identifier. He is speaking in the Hebrew language, not in the Greek language, not in Latin, not in English. What does that mean? That he didn't say Iesus. He didn't say Jesus, because those words did not exist, cannot exist, because the lettering does not exist in the Hebrew tongue. So it cannot be pronounced in Hebrew because they do not contain the sounds and the structures for the language. The only possibility that Paul would have heard was either Yehoshua or Yahoshua. And now Luke considered this linguistic detail important enough to include this in scripture. So they made sure to record this. This is giving us powerful evidence of how the Messiah identified himself. Okay? I identify as a Hebrew. I speak Hebrew. So again, the Yod, the Hey, This time we have the Holam Vav, which is Yeho, Shu, the Sheen, and the Ayin, Ah. Not possible, again, in Greek, not possible in English. Why? Because we don't have the sound structure and the lettering structure to accommodate what was being said in the Hebrew tongue. And again, let me remind, and there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. Let's talk a little bit about the Hebrew language in the first century. Again, the Messiah's family members were Hebrews with Hebraic names. Therefore, the Messiah would not have been given a name that was outside of the Hebrew language. I'm not even going to ask the question. He was not. Luke affirms this. He says, and when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew language, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads. And I said, who are you, master? And the master said, I am he pig. It just doesn't go. I am he pig who you are persecuting. No. He said, I am Yehoshua. I am Yahoshua. That is how it would be stated in the Hebrew tongue. We have historical evidence from Dr. Roland M. Baton, who confirms that the Aramaic and Hebrew were the languages that Yeshua and his contemporaries spoke, making it impossible for his birth name to have been either Greek or Latin. Just as an aside, the letter J didn't exist in Yeshua's time. The letter J is maybe what, like 500 years old? So this definitely makes that name problematic. So what does our friend Dr. Roland Baton say? From the Canaanites, the Hebrews learned much, both of the arts, of agriculture, and a city dwelling. In this period, the Hebrews adapted their Aramaic speech to a dialect of the Canaanites and produced the classical Hebrew tongue, in which the larger portion of the Old Testament is written. They later returned to Aramaic, and some of the Testament is in this language, which was the language of Jesus. Again, Jesus is a Latinized transliteration of the Greek Iesu. The final transformation not only completely disconnected the name from its original meaning, but again, incorporated the Latin sus element, meaning pig. This is, again, an association that would have been culturally offensive in the Hebrew context. Remember, he is a sacrifice. We look at symbolization. He would be considered a lamb, a ram, a goat, not a pig. That is an unclean animal that cannot be sacrificed upon the altar. Let's talk a little bit about these modern names, modern inventions. These recent alternatives to the Messiah's name. So in recent decades, so within the last, since the 60s, some groups have proposed there is an alternative form of the Messiah's name that is without historical linguistic evidence. These are names like Yahusha, which is lacking the shu'ah verb component in the name, which means to save. Remember, it has to be a savior in there. There has to be salvation in there. SHUA, This is SHA. We have to now disqualify this because it does not have that end verb, that action of saving. Yahawashai. This is an invention of, again, Black Hebrew Israelites in the 20th century in Harlem. Great place to buy some sneakers. Not sure if I really want to get my salvation there, but hey. Again, as we can see, that verb ending does not match, so there's no salvation in these names. So we've got these modern inventions. There's no manuscript evidence, and they're grammatically problematic. Versus when we look at what is biblically attested, again, we've got the yod, the hey, the vav holam, we've got the sheen and ayin. So we've got that shua. Even the abbreviated Yeshua at least still means salvation. It still has that shua on the end, which means salvation. We can find this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it also follows the proper Hebraic grammar. So one of the things that we're teaching you, brothers and sisters, is to be able to understand how you can identify the things that you are being presented with. So we want to make sure that you have the tools, number one, and kind of moving forward. And I apologize that I haven't been doing more of this, but we're going to make sure that you're getting more familiar with your Hebraic, with the Hebraic language, being able to read it better in Hebrew. But we also want you to know how to find the resources to be able to test and understand the information that you are being given, right? So we want to be able to go back to primary sources. We want to be able to go back to people who were closer in time frame, right? So when we go and we look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, this is in like the 2nd, 3rd century versus what just happened in the 20th century. That's a big gap of being able to test and understand what you are trying to learn and what you would be able to explain to someone else if they ask you. Is that fair? So again, these names are not attested in any ancient manuscript. These names are not attested in any ancient manuscript. These names are not attested in any ancient manuscript. So Yahusha, Yahawashai, we can't find that. Again, we understand that intentions are pure. People have good intentions. And I'm always reminded what they used to say to us as kids: the path to hell is paved with good intentions. They are commendable. But sadly, what happens is that these invented forms create more confusion than they create clarity. Scholars do linguistic analysis to show us that these names are invented forms that, again, do not follow Hebraic grammatical patterns. To just go back and look at the basic Hebrew. Remember, every time we saw saved in a name, we saw that sheen, we saw that wav, and we saw that ayin. Shu'ah. We always saw that. That is what the Hebrew word is for save. If it's not there, it's not there. So again, we are looking sheen, ayin, yod, the ayin, the sheen, the sharuk. This is where we get that, and I think this one actually switched around, but it should be sheen, wav, sharuk, ayin. So shu'ah and shu'ah. This is what's required in order to claim the meaning of saved, to be able to say Yah saved. Again, the Dead Sea Scrolls, these are evidence, these are old Hebrew manuscripts that confirm Yeshua, Yod, Hey, Wav Holam, Sheen, Ayin, Yod Hey. That's Yah's name all day, every day. We can go look at that in Psalm 68 and 4. The short, ooh, someone has Miss Margaret.
The Hebrew verb, Yasha, is that where they're pulling the Yahusha?
You know what? I couldn't say. I mean, we could say maybe they're pulling it from Yeshua. I can't say. I know a lot of people see Yah on the front and they say, oh, okay, this means what it means, but it doesn't, because yes, you might have a yod in the front, but again, if we don't have that shu,
Sheen.
so we see that sheen, you might see it as the sheen, the wav, sharuk, and then the ayin. If it's not there, it's not there, right? So we commend people for trying, but at the end of the day, it's like reading something in English. If I'm pointing to the word recent and I'm telling you that it says REHPT, but you're telling me that's the word recent, and I'm like, that's not how it's spelled. That's not what it is. I respect that that's what you would like for me to understand. But when you look at the words, when you look at the breakdown, you cannot get that verbalization from what you're saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So when we are looking at here with the post-exilic shua, see we have the yod, so we got the yeh, and then we have the sheen. So we at least have the yesh, but the problem is here we've lost yah in this. So the shua again still means saved. So the yeh here, that yod with the siri underneath, that gives us yeh or he. And then the shu, the sheen, the wav sharuk, the ayin. That shu'ah is what makes this name at least mean salvation. Does that give you a little bit better understanding?
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying where they pulled the Yahusha from.
That's again, this is
word Yasha.
Yeah, this is an invention.
Liberated or something.
Right. Right. It's man-made inventions. Man-made inventions. That's really what it boils down to, sadly. But great question. Great question.
Okay.
So this one's a little bit fun for us. Jesus saves. We've all seen those bumper stickers. We also see he saves, the Yeshua, versus Yah saves. So that's what we've been talking about all night. Is does it make a difference if it says something else versus what Elohim has declared by divine decree? Okay. So there are theological implications of the Messiah's name, and they're profound. Okay. Again, we talked about typology. We see a mirroring when Moses changes Hoshea's name to Yehoshua before entering the promised land. That's in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verse 16. What's being emphasized here is that while Yehoshua, Joshua, as we have anglicized his name, are leading the people into the promised land, so he is a savior, it is Yah who's actually doing the saving. So there have been other saviors, but at the end of the day, it is still Yah who is doing the saving. Regardless of what vessel he uses, it is still Yah who is performing this. He is the puppet master behind all of this. Okay? At the end of the day, it's always Yah who is going to save. He provided the sacrifice. But the salvation still comes through him. And again, here's my phrase. My glory I will not give to another. Isaiah 48. It has to be Yah. If Yah is missing in the process, we have nothing. He saves. Again, we have that yeah here, but we've lost the hey. So Yah has been removed. We have the shu'ah, which still means save, but because we lost the hey, it's just he. Who is he? He is not doing any saving. Yah is doing the saving. So now it becomes a generic savior. There's nothing generic about my Elohim. My Elohim is not basic. He is not ambiguous. And again, this is the post-exilic, post-exile, Babylonian influence. That's the abbreviation that came out after the exile. Versus Yah saves. Again, we got that Yod Hey. We've got Hey, Yod Hey. Yah is here, y'all. And he saves. His name is explicitly used to show us salvation. Yah is salvation. Yehoshua, Yah is salvation. He is who's going to bring us into the promised land. He is the one who provided a redeemer. This preserves his dignity, his glory. This is what we got pre-exile, when we were still closer to our Yah, to our Elohim, to our Savior. Sister Tseruyah.
Okay. Saying he or Jesus saves instead of Yah saves is like thanking the chicken for dinner instead of the cook. While Yehoshua was the means of salvation, Yah was its source and designer. Wow.
Praise the chicken. I have been delivered from my hunger. The chicken has delivered me from my hunger. Isn't that wrong? Isn't that wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Out here praising chickens. So really what we're saying is that even though Yehoshua was the vessel, right? He is not the source of our salvation. We do not worship Yeshua, we worship Yah. We worship the creator, not the created. Okay? So when we are looking at the process of what we do and how we do it, we are given all thanks, praise, and honor to Yah. Salvation comes from Yah. We good? We tracking? All right. So again, we talked about the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The Messiah's name was spoken regionally. So there are regional variations in ancient Israel. The northern Galilean, Tiberian pronunciation, Yehoshua, the southern Judean pronunciation, Yahoshua. They're the same name, different vocalizations, same divine element. So what's the difference? The northern dialect, the divine name element uses the Shiva, including Yeho. The southern dialect uses the Kamat, resulting in Yaho. Now, most Shemitic scholars would agree that the philological vocalization of the theophoric name began and terminated with Yah. This was prior to the Babylonian captivity and prior to the invention of the Nakud, the Hebrew vowel system. So our brothers, the scribes, they were trying to help. They were trying to help to say, hey, here is my people who do not know how to speak their own language. We're going to give them this vowel system and it's going to help. And it caused confusion. So again, both forms maintain their theophoric element and they maintain that Yah saves. This is the declaration. It doesn't matter which accent. It doesn't matter if you're saying Appalachian or Appalachian. Doesn't matter if you're saying New Orleans or New Orleans. We're still talking about the same thing. So let's dig a little deeper. The transliteration. This has been a journey, people. This has been a journey. The Messiah's name has been on a journey through languages. So we have the phonetic evolution. It's a progression, but sadly, it's a theological diminishment. Where Yah's name, where his meaning has been obscured. The proclamation of Yah as the source of our salvation is lost in translation. So again, we go from the Hebrew original, Yehoshua, again, Yah saves. Post-exilic, it's shortened to Yeshua. So now we're removing Yah, we're keeping salvation, or at least saying he saves. Praise that chicken. But we've removed Yah. And this was the starting point of where the transliterations begin. They start with Yeshua. We then go to Iesu. Preserve the sound, but lost the meaning. Then finally, we get to the Latin English form, Jesus, completely disconnected from the original meaning. So again, step by step by step, we got partial preservations, but we lose the theological message. We lose the salvation that Yah is showing. We lose that in translation. The name Jesus neither shows respect to the Messiah's true purpose. It doesn't glorify Yah's name as the source of salvation. So we say, come on home. Let's revert back. Let's bring it back to the origin. Let's go back to the pre-exilic understanding of how we are supposed to understand, worship, and look for Yah by the clues that he has given us. The Messiah's name carries a mission. See, we're just going down the drain. So let's sum this up. Yehoshua and Yehoshua. They just represent different dialects, but both names carry the same theophoric meaning, which is Yah saves. Yeshua, which is the elided name, post-exilic Hebrew, Aramaic, just means saves. More ambiguously, he saves. Again, we have now lost its theophoric value. Iesu is a Greek transliteration of the elided Yeshua. So now again, we have completely lost meaning. So we're no longer even in the realm of salvation anymore. By the time we get to Jesus, the Latinized transliteration of the Greek Iesu, the original meaning completely lost. And now we have the suffix sus, which is carrying the meaning of a pig. And the name Jesus, he pig, does not respect the Messiah's true purpose or glorify Yah, period, point blank. So again, we say it's time to restore our reverence that we show to Yah through Yahshua's name as it embodied his mission. All right, so conclusion. The Messiah's Hebrew name carries profound theological significance. Jesus serves as an identifier, but it's not the original Yahoshua or Yehoshua, which were both an identifier and a proclamation declaring that Yah saves. And every time we say the name Yahoshua, Yehoshua, we are declaring Yah saves. Let me say that again. Every time we say the names Yahoshua, Yehoshua, we are making the proclamation. We are declaring that Yah saves every time we utter those words. This aligns with what we are taught in the book of Matthew, that he would save his people from their sins. That's what we're looking for, salvation, because we have sinned. Hopefully we are not sinners. We're not practicing sin, but we have sinned. And because of that, we need salvation. So we declare, we proclaim that Yah is salvation. So, Sister Andrea, you had asked before about the name Yahshua, which is the abbreviated pronunciation of Yahoshua. And due to ambiguities surrounding the two Hebrew vowels, the Wav Holam, the Wav Shuruk, one produces the O sound and the other produces the U sound. And then also because it has also served as a simpler vocalization of Yahoshua. This is where you get the name Yahshua. And this was kind of during the pre and post exilic eras. This form is also attested to, sister, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it maintains the divine element and salvation proclamation. Again, Yah saves. That's what we're concerned with. Yah saves. So we're honoring the original theological intent. Yah saves. And just to be clear, what we are doing here, what we are imparting here, is not that people will be condemned for having familiar traditions, right? It is about reconnecting with this powerful declaration, Yah saves, that is embedded in the name that the Messiah was given. That is the message. That is the mission, that Yah saves. That is why this name is important. So, one last thing, our journey is to understand the Messiah's authentic name. It's not about condemning traditions or disparaging other believers. It's simply to reflect our desire to follow Elohim's own example of how he refers to his people in scriptures. Remember, we saw every time Elohim spoke through his prophets, he always used the full theophoric name, showing us, identifying to us, proclaiming to us that is important. That there's a promise that those who seek me diligently will find me. That's what encourages our scholarly pursuit of accuracy. We do this with rigorous academic discipline. And shout out to the Morieyah, because that man spends time, energy, effort. I mean, he writes, I think he's written something like 300 plus papers on different understandings that we need to have as people who are diligently searching for Elohim. He puts in that time. It is a rigorous academic discipline. So we need to prioritize evidence, We talked about the primary sources earlier. We need to prioritize evidence over inheritance. We inherit lies. We have to just let it go. Again, these things are familiar to us. Big Mama, everybody, this is what they're doing. This is what they're saying. But when we are going against, kicking against the goad, as Paul had done, we're telling Elohim that we're not interested in what he has offered us. We're not interested in his message. We are only interested in our own way. So again, we examine ancient manuscripts. We look at the linguistic patterns. We look at the scriptural evidence, not inheritance. We look at evidence. We're not satisfied with secondhand information. We're not satisfied with traditions. Instead, we want to glorify the Creator by honoring his word with the same care that he demonstrates when he is referring to his people's name in scriptures. Remember, he said, if you seek me early and diligently, you will find me. That's Proverbs 8:17. All right. Well, I thank you. Hopefully this has been edifying for everyone. Ask my sister Tseruyah to step up, give us her thoughts, and then we'll put in some work this evening. So again, thank you.
Praise Yah, praise Yah. This was most definitely edifying, so no need to worry about that. That's for sure. One thing I would like to say before I just do a brief commentary is that one of the things that I really appreciated about when I first started listening to the Tabernacle on the Shabbat day was the scholarship. And I was like, wow, I am learning so many new words. And this was years ago. I'm like, oh, I got to look this word up. I got to look that word up. And not to pat myself on the back, but I'm a college graduate. It's not like I was, somebody that wasn't quote unquote learned. I did know some things, but I just learned so many new words and so many things. So again, shout out to our Morieyah for the scholarship. We are most appreciative of that. As I was thinking about this, I'm sorry.
If I could just dovetail on that really quick. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the same boat. We all have our degrees. We've got our alphabet. Who cares means nothing.
Right.
I love when we get to learn a new word. I'm like, ooh, I'm not familiar with that. I'm writing it down. I'm Googling it. And just in case anybody doesn't know, we actually do have like a dictionary on the website and I'll have to get the link and share it, of all the different words that you may not be familiar with that the Morieyah may use throughout the process of Shabbat class. So that helps you as well. Just kind of, again, getting enculturated with understanding the process of what Elohim is giving us, as well as how we're learning it from someone who has taken the time. So I apologize. I just wanted to dovetail on what you just said.
Oh, no worries. So what's in a name? Everything is in a name. Even as humans, we can understand that a person's name is the first thing that we learn when we meet someone. It's a primary identifier. We make it a point to remember people's names if we plan to have any type of ongoing relationship. We strive to get the pronunciation and the spelling correct, and we apologize if we get it wrong. And most people will correct us if we do get it wrong. In Neo-Christianity, many of us were taught to venerate the name Jesus through so many songs, through prayer, through scripture, and in sermons. All we had to do was call upon the name Jesus. And if we didn't have the right words to pray, just say Jesus. You could say Jesus over and over again. This lesson has laid out for us precisely how this name Jesus came into existence, as well as the fallacy of continuing to use this name. Once we know, we should change it. The Messiah's original Hebrew name, Yehoshua or Yehoshua or Yeshua, depending on the dialect, should bring a smile to each and every one of our faces as it rolls off of our tongues, knowing that it carries the name of the Creator along with his original intent. We owe eternal thanks to our Creator Yah for extending his forgiveness to us while we were ignorant, because we were. and his grace, mercy, and loving kindness for opening our eyes to truth that is undeniable. Again, what's in the name? Everything. Toda.
Beautiful, sis. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Sister Margaret had her hand up. I don't know if she's put her hand up to help with the questions or if you had a question.
Both. But I just want to say, I love the Morieyah. I love the empirical evidence and information presented in all the lessons and all the teachings, even during Shabbat. I do listen, even though I assemble here in St. Louis with some other Israelites, but I lean more towards the Morieyah's teaching because of the empirical evidence he presents.
Beautiful. Will you be able to come and visit during the Mishpachah?
One day I'll be. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, so
Okay.
with a little flight I'd have to take.
Okay, because that's in October. That's our big family weekend that we're having in October. And no pressure. I don't know if anyone who is,
I ain't gonna let you pressure me.
Right. Anybody is
but I'll hope y'all willing. I'll be there, but I'm not saying.
Okay.
Well, I want to come, but
if you are there, we would love to have you. As look, Sister Martha is also saying it. Anyone that can make it, we would love to see you, have you, meet you. But again, we understand that it may not be possible. But just know that the love is there, and we, hope for it. So.
And look at my face on this.
Part. That your beautiful face, sister. So, all right, let you work with Sister Tseruyah so that we can get some of these questions in, and I will mute myself because I'm talking too much.
Okay, I think we do have 27 questions this week, so we could have 3 participants do 9 each. We have any volunteers?
Oh, Miss Margaret, you got Miss Morieyah too.
Okay, Miss Morieyah, would you like to go first?
Cain, shalom.
Shalom.
And I just wanted to make a comment, sis, that on what you said about names, and that is the truth. It's like, and I'll say more, and when we can comment later. But when you know the proper pronunciation, why not go back and do that?
Yes.
But I've got more to say about that later, because anyways, all right, I'm ready.
Okay, number 1 through 9.
1 through 9. What does anglicized mean? It means it is the practice of modifying foreign words, names, and phrases to make them easier to spell, pronounce, and understand in English. Number 2, cite 2 Hebrew names and their anglicized versions. Okay. Joseph is anglicized for Yosef, which also means Ya'adz. Mary is anglicized for Miriam, which means rebellion.
Great, thank you.
What does Yahudah mean? Yahudah means Yah be praised or Yah be thanked.
Yes.
What word means instructions? Torah. Number 5. Why was the Hebrew Bible translated into Greek? After the people that were living after leaving Egypt under the Greek rule, they started to acculturate to the Greek language and to the art and so forth. And so the Hebrews that were in Egypt lost the ability to read Hebrew fluently. They were confined to Greek, so the scribes translated and transliterated the Hebrew Bible into Greek for them.
Excellent.
Number 6, what is the Greek Old Testament Bible called? It is called the Septuagint Bible, and it's also like LXX.
Yes.
And that kind of, I guess, translates to 70.
Okay.
Number 7, what part of the Bible was originally translated into Greek from Hebrew? That would have been the 70, the Torah, the instructions, and it was the first 5 books of the Bible.
Yes.
Number 8, what is Torah? Torah is the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. That is the Torah, which means instructions.
Great.
Number 9, what Greek letter is used in place of the SH or the sh letter in Hebrew? And that would be the sigma in Greek.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Sister Margaret is next.
Okay, I'm ready. Number 10, what Greek letter is used to replace the Hebrew letter Y or Yod in Yeshua? The I called iota and the E called eta. That's the
Iota.
Number 11, define what transliteration means. The process of transferring a word from the alphabet of one language to another when a language doesn't have a letter in its alphabet to produce the corrected sounds a foreign word or letters makes.
That is correct. Thank you.
You're welcome. Number 12, explain how Yeshua became Jesus. Y changed in Greek to iota and eta. Yeah. The SH changed in Greek to S, the sigma. Then the U or the U sound was replaced in Greek with the O, omicron, and U, upsilon. And those together equals Jesus. Then the final S is required to close or terminate a masculine name in Greek, and that produced Jesus.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And number 13, explain how Jesus became Jesus. The Romans, the Latins, replaced the iota with the J and dropped the omicron, producing Jesus. And number 14, why does the Messiah's Greek name end with S? Because Greek masculine names require an S to close or terminate the name.
Absolutely.
And number 15, true or false? Gabriel told Mary or Miriam to name her child Jesus. That's false, false, false.
Exactly.
At number 16, does the name Jesus mean Yah saves? No, it does not.
Absolutely not.
No. And number 17, what is the Latin word for pig? Sus. They probably intended to do it, but pig, sus.
Thank you.
And number 18, the last one, but not least, why do you think it is important to refer to someone by their proper birth name? First of all, respect. Second of all, the possible meaning of their name. Like Yahshua, that means Yah saves.
Right.
Like my name is Margaret. It means pearl or precious gem. And if you call me something else, Marguerite, or something else, Margarita, my name is Margaret.
Exactly. And you probably would correct the person.
Yes, I will.
And if they kept doing it, then you would just say, they just don't want to, and maybe you won't even answer.
They don't want me to talk to them because they're not talking to me.
Exactly.
All right.
It makes so much sense.
It does.
Thank you,
You're welcome. Margaret. Thank you.
Do we have someone else to do 18 or 19 through 27? One more volunteer.
Sister Jerry, can you help us out? I guess she said not tonight.
Sister Jerry.
Let me see. Sister Lisa. Ooh, we had fun with you last week, Sister Lisa. Oh, Sister Jerry came off mute. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm clicking on they have changed this program. They got
some kind of update.
They changed the program, so they have I got 3 buttons to push in order to get to the microphone.
All right.
Wow.
We appreciate you.
No problem. Let's see. That was 21 through 27.
Actually, 19 through
19.
27.
I'm sorry. 19. Okay. First of all, shalom.
Shalom.
Okay. So 19. When was the Messiah's name transliterated to Jesus? The 16th century, 1524.
Yes.
The Messiah spoke to Paul in the Hebrew language.
Of course.
What name did Paul hear the Messiah call himself? Yehoshua. He called Paul Saul. He called Paul Saul, and then he called him by his own name. So
right.
Okay. What are the 2 names that mean Yah save? Yehoshua, the 2, the E and the A, the Yehoshua. They were Tiberian and Judean pronunciation in the northern and southern Israel.
Thank you.
23, true or false? Yeshua means Yah save.
Yes.
And that's put true. Yeah, it's the abbreviation of. Yeah, okay. 24. The names of the Messiah were pronounced differently in southern Israel than in northern Israel. And I guess that was supposed to be true or false. So I put true.
Yes, that was supposed to be true or false.
Oh, okay. And 25. True or false? Yah did not refer to the priest Joshua as Yeshua. He referred to him as Yehoshua, and I put true.
That's true. Yes.
26, the name of Yahushua and Yahweh are fictitious names. True. And 27, why are the names Yahusha and Yahweh fallacious names? Because they cannot be supported by primary sources.
Exactly. And also the verbs to save do not appear in the name as well.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sister Jerry.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we want to hear from you all this evening. I know a couple of people had some thoughts, questions that they wanted to share. So come on up. Okay, Miss Morieyah.
Shalom again. So I'm just stuck on, the lesson was absolutely wonderful, and thank you all for presenting it to us. One of the things that really bothers me, and it's traveling worldwide and stuff like that. My name is Rhonda. That was my birth name, right? Rhonda. And they pronounced, I'm in Italy, they say Ronda, right? But they never took it and tried to say something different.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they go back after, they bring on more letters into their languages, like into Greek and into Latin and so forth? Why wouldn't they go back and change that and make it what it's supposed to be? Yeshua, Yehoshua. So I'm looking at this thing. It's like, okay, so was it to confuse, the people of the world so that you're under a certain rendition of how they really want you to worship, they being, those that don't want you to worship Yah, so they don't correct it. I was thinking back, like when I was, before I retired, counseling and teaching there at New Mexico Military Institute, we had a lot of kids that came in from Mexico. Here I have a kid, last name spelled L-L-A-N-O. And, like our sister said, if you don't know how to pronounce it, you ask. And I'm asking, because, okay, I'm looking at it in English. Leano? No. Iano. It pronounces differently. So why wouldn't they do that? What was really, I understand, yeah, they didn't have the letters. Yes, they made this kind of a sound, but still, why wouldn't they change it back to what it's truly supposed to be? And what was that? I mean, was that so that we would not ever be able to worship Yah like he's supposed to be worshiped? Just thoughts, that got kind of run through my mind, because everything can be corrected. And I think that the beautiful part is that Yah opened up the minds and the understanding of many of those that are seeking and wanting to be close to him. So that was just what I wanted to kind of express. It just gets me. It's like, if you know the truth, then say the truth. If you know what's correct, go back and say what's correct. Straighten it up. But apparently that's not what the world wants to do. So thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah.
Shalom.
Well, and sis, you
Yes.
hit it spot on. It's not what the world wants to do. So a few weeks back, we did a lesson and we talked about how essentially, we talked about paganism in Christendom. And one of the things that we've seen, and also with the change of the Sabbath day, is that Jesus is the God of neo-Christianity. Okay? So we cannot now go back and refer to our God by the name of Yah, because we don't worship Yah. Okay? There is no interest in getting back to the original. There's no interest in going back to Sinai. There's no interest in being pre-exilic. We want to worship our God, Jesus, because Jesus says that I don't have to keep the law and that I can still be saved.
True. Very
Okay?
true.
So our call to action, now that we know better, is to understand first and foremost how this happened, and then to make that correction, right? Now that the scales are falling from our eyes and we say, look, I am going to celebrate the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am going to go back to Sinai. I am going to go pre-exilic, and I am going to now find who the true God is, and I am going to serve him. I am going to make a proclamation that Yah saves, because that is what is put into me to do that. I want to serve Yah. I want to be an imager of him. A lot of people don't want that. And that is why they're not going to go back and make the correction.
Got it. Toda.
Yeah. So let your zeal push you forward. They say when you're on the airplane, you got to put your mask on first. The reality is we can't save them. They don't want to be saved. I'll let you fill in the blanks on that. But does that help?
Can absolutely, Toda, and I truly appreciate that. So it's up to each individual.
Correct.
Keep going strong. Correct. Keep going forward.
Correct. Praise Yah. That is your individual calling. You have to save yourself before I can save anybody else. One of my favorite verses is when they say, and I always mess it up too. One of my favorite verses, and I mess it up. Daniel, Jacob, and Moses could be in the land, but they could still only save themselves. Now, these are some of the most righteous brothers in the Old Testament. They couldn't save their family. Noah couldn't save the antediluvians. He could only save himself. So that's our focus, sis. So, but great comment, great question. Sister Barakia?
Thank you, and shalom to everybody.
Shalom.
I kept thinking about this scripture that says about a name, especially Hebrew names. I think it was in Acts. I thought I had it here, but it's saying that a name means authority, and it has a function. So when you choose your Hebrew name, Yah has a way of bringing you up to speed with that name. If you really seeking Yah with, like hidden treasure, his name is a treasure to be had. And I also read a scripture that said in the last days something about Yah said, my children will know my name. So it is very important because there's power and authority in a name. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well said, sis. Agreed. Very much agreed. I thought I saw another hand, but maybe not. All right. Anyone else? Oh, Sister Latanya, go ahead.
Okay, shalom everyone.
Shalom.
I was thinking about when I was reading this lesson, and I was thinking about how they were trying to just lose the translation of what his name means, even as a person. And I was I don't know, I may be off, but this is just what I'm feeling when I read the lesson, that we as Israelites, we were done the same way. Our ancestors were taken from their homeland, had to change their names, their food was changed, how we ate. They gave us different names. They just changed the meaning, and by them changing our names and how we ate and the foods that we were eating, how we dressed, how we communicated, they stopped that. And it was like, as they changed our names and gave us what they wanted to give us, it's like we lost who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We lost our identity. So it's like, you question yourself, like, who am I? Who am I? And it's like, I was just, and the only way that you can really learn who you are is having that relationship with Yah again, so he can show you uh, who you are. Since we had no control over really, the people taking our ancestors and doing what they did. So now we have to relearn who we are. So I was really just looking at that, how we just really was just robbed.
And that's fair to an extent. But I will also venture that to a certain extent we gave up our identity, right? Because we were
True that.
in Sinai. We were and we the children of Israel, all the children of Israel, the mixed multitude, were a people who were given and had a relationship with Yah directly. They were close to Elohim, and in the process of them having a marriage, a relationship with Elohim, Elohim gave them a choice who they would serve. And constantly and consistently, they chose to serve other gods. Constantly and consistently, we chose to be like the nations. And it is because of that that we were scattered. It was because of that that we had to serve gods that our forefathers did not know. So it is now incumbent on each one of us individually, like how we were just saying with Sister Morieyah, is to now get back to Sinai, is now to get back to having that relationship with Elohim. We need to search him diligently in order for us to find him, right? So yes, there was a punishment that we are still feeling the blowback of that punishment, but that punishment came because of our disobedience. We talked about it last week about sin is compounded by our individual actions. So it is because of the choices that we make then and now that have led us to be so far away from our Father in heaven. So what we are constantly doing, and what I'm hearing from you, is that we're trying to get back to that. And I agree with that. We are trying to get back to that initial relationship that we had. We are seeking, and hopefully diligently, we are seeking our Elohim. So we're understanding his plan of salvation. We're looking for him. We're proclaiming his name, right? So these things were taken away from us, yes, but they were taken away because we were disobedient. Sad to say. So you're spot on, sis, and we're trying to find our identity, and our identity hopefully is a daughter of Yah. Our identity is a son of Yah. That is our identity, right? And when we accept that and we say, Father Yah, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to learn your laws. I'm going to learn your way. I'm going to choose to be a righteous servant. I'm going to choose to be an imager of you. That is where we now get our identity from. Does that make sense, sis?
Yeah, yes, it does. You just took it back a little, a lot further, which I
Oh, yeah.
didn't really just,
Oh, no, no. You always got to take it back to the beginning. You got to take it back
yeah.
to Sinai. We take it back to the garden. We got to take it all the way back to understand how we got here today. So
But
that,
mhm.
yeah, no, it goes back way further than I think we're willing to accept, because we have to accept that I had a part in this. Elohim didn't punish me because I didn't do anything wrong. Oh, I deserved it. There's a warrant out for my arrest. They chasing me. That's my fault. There's no warrants out for me in the system. I just want to put that out there. Um, but the Most High, he got a warrant for every last one of us, every single one of us. But because of mercy, because of grace, we get to bring ourselves back. But that's the starting point. And if we don't understand the starting point, we're never going to get to the finish line.
So when you begin to talk to people, well, or like when you're in a conversation with people and they talk about, like I just spoke about how they brought our ancestors and everything over here, whatever, and took this. But how ex do you get into that point
No.
where you talk about how we are really in trouble? Because we already know we hard head.
Mm-hmm.
That's a give and take.
Oh yeah.
But
I said we stiff neck.
yeah, for real.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is that when you want to talk about the stiff neck and the stiff we being that way, is it good to show it in the word where it says that and how we become like that?
Great question. And what I will tell you is, if somebody is asking, if they're open and they're receptive, absolutely. But to just be running people down in the streets and like, let me put this book in your face and I'm gonna show you what this book means. No, absolutely not. So if you're in a conversation with somebody and they're just like, man, this has to go back deeper. There has to be something else. And maybe you throw a feeler out there and you're like, yeah, there's a spiritual component to it. And if they're like, oh yeah, tell me more, then by all means, tell them more. But if they're not interested, do not try to force this on anyone. Because one thing that we don't want to do is cause people to blaspheme the Most High, because we are trying to force information on them that they are neither open or willing to receive.
Okay. Thank you. And Sister Morieyah, I'm not like that.
No. I don't think that. No, that's absolutely not what I meant. It was just more so because because and especially when you first coming into the culture, you're so excited and you're like, everybody wants to be saved, and I just want to tell everybody this good news. Let me wave this book, and the next thing you know, they're running you out. We go to those who are seeking. I think, gosh, and the thing is, I know content, but I can't tell you the verses. And they said, when you go to a house, if they're not open to this word, knock the dust off your feet and go to the next house. So we are only sharing this with the people who want this word, right? So if they're not seeking, if they're not open, if they're not receptive to this, dust your feet off and keep it moving, because it's not for them. It may not be the time for them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
All right, praise y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have a thought, question, some nuggets they may have pulled from this lesson? All right. Going once, going twice. Talk about next week's lesson. So next week, we're taking it a step further. So we are building from one week to the next. We're understanding the name of Yah. We're understanding the Bible. We've defined sin. So now we're going to talk about the opposing side of that. We're going to talk about righteousness. So next week's lesson, this is what we are going to be jumping into. And we have a bonus lesson for you all the following week. So stay tuned to that. I believe I had accidentally posted the video giving you guys teasers of the good things to come. So we do have a bonus lesson after that. But our lesson next week is going to be on defining righteousness. So definitely get in, get your plate, get something to eat, and sit down and enjoy it. All right. My sister Morieyah said that was Matthew 10:14, the verse I was referring to about dusting your feet off. And I'll make sure to put that into the primary chat so that you all can go and look at that too. So, all right. So if no one has anything else that they would like to add, Sister Tseruyah, would you be willing to close us out in prayer this evening?
Certainly. Father Yah, we come before you tonight with hearts of gratitude. We just thank you so much for opening up the eyes of our understanding, because we know that we could still be in darkness. We ask that you would just continue to meet the needs of all those that have labored and are laboring to bring the light of your word to those that are seeking. We thank you for what you've just shared through your word about the importance of names and what names mean. And oh, wow. We are just so thankful, Father, for getting this information and being able to absorb it. And we just ask, Father, that you would just go before us, prepare the way for us to come back next week to gain more from your word and learn more about righteousness. And we're just so excited, Father. And we just can't thank you enough for counting us worthy to even receive the truth of your word. And we ask, Father, that you would just bless everyone that's here, meet every need that's represented here, Father. And of course, to bless our Tabernacle family. And we have our Shabbat class tomorrow night. We cannot wait. So, Father, we just thank you again. And we ask that you would just continue to open up the eyes of our understanding, because we are seeking. And we continue to seek you for showing us the way. And we give you all the praise, all the honor and glory. And we ask it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach ben Dawid. Amen.